Tonight on the Mike Tomlin Show, the head coach gives us his take about the situation with Steelers running back Le'Veon Bell. We have a scouting report on our season opener opponent, the Cleveland Browns, and I sit down with fifth-year defensive end Stephon Tuitt. All of that and plenty more on this brand new edition of the Mike Tomlin Show, and it starts right now.
Here we go. This pass is caught, and that's a touchdown. That's the way to work. Come on. He's hit that sack. The Steelers win the football game. Let's go. Come get it. You know what it is.
This one is in the history books.
Here we go.
The Mike Tomlin Show is presented by 84 Lumber.
Hello and welcome back for another season of the Mike Tomlin Show. I'm Missy Matthews. This off-season is finally behind us. Workouts, OTAs, minicamp, training camp. The process, as Coach Tomlin likes to call it, is now in the rearview mirror. Some tough decisions were made to cut the roster down to 53 guys, and the team is ready to roll for week 1 of the regular season. Well, most of the team. Questions still linger about the status of running back Le'Veon Bell, so let's send it over to Coach and Bob Pompiani, who discuss the team as they gear up for 2018.
All right, Missy, thanks very much. It's an exciting time of the year. It's the opener. The Steelers get to business on Sunday against the Cleveland Browns. Coach Mike Tomlin, looking forward to year number 2 of doing this, number 1. Number 2, I need to ask you the trending question of the week. Le'Veon Bell, not here. Kevin Colbert put out a statement, said he was disappointed. Your take on the situation?
You know, my take is it is what it is. When he gets here, we'll assess his overall readiness and not only mentally but physically, and then proceed from there. Until then, we'll focus on the guys that have been here and been working. And oftentimes in football, one man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. It's been an unfortunate circumstance regarding Le'Veon, but it's created an awesome opportunity for James Conner. He's taken great advantage of it from my perspective, have gotten some quality work and earned a lot of respect among some of the veteran players. So it's going to be an awesome opportunity for him to show what he's capable of, and I think we all got a great deal of confidence in him as a featured ball carrier.
What has most impressed you with James Conner? Everybody knows he can run, but what else has he done in this offseason?
You know, I think just, you know, utilizing the knowledge that comes with experience. His level of conditioning, his overall mental readiness to the day-to-day work is on display. He knows what lies ahead, and he's conducting himself accordingly, like we ask a lot of second-year guys to do. I'm very open about the challenge that we have for second-year guys in terms of making a significant step, and he's probably the poster boy for that in terms of everything he's done thus far.
When it comes to the roster, you guys had a lot of tough decisions to make, which I'm sure is a coaching luxury. You like to have those decisions. The quarterback got a lot of scrutiny. Tell us why the decision was made to keep Josh Dobbs. I think Mason Rudolph, everyone knows, third-round pick, he's not going anywhere, over Landry Jones.
You know, Josh has done a nice job. Much like James, we've seen a tremendous improvement between year 1 and year 2. We anticipated that. He delivered that in spite of all the competition and things of that nature. And his ability to stand up and deliver consistent performance and improve in spite of circumstance was attractive.
Defensively, but you chose to bring in John Bostick. You also have Vince Williams, gave him a new deal. Talk about the inside linebacker and specifically the depth there.
You know, I like the growth and development of that group. I think if you're talking about that group, you're talking about Vince Williams first and foremost, and he's a guy that has continued to ascend over the course of his career here. Has played a lot as a young guy by necessity and then fell into a core special teams role and really was dominant in that area. Got back to playing defense and showing flashes of dominance in that area a year ago, particularly with what he was able to do as a pass rush man. So, you know, he's going through a natural maturation process, viewed by his teammates as a leader, and has earned that a consistent contributor, one that we expect to be an all situations player for us. We've added John Bostick, a guy that has been starter capable in multiple cities, a guy that came into the league as a second-round pick and has done a nice job for us thus far.
Should be exciting. Gets right off the bat with Cleveland. And when we come back, Missy, we'll talk about the Browns. They're coming off a winless season, but there's a lot of high hope in Cleveland. We'll talk with Coach Tomlin about that in a little bit from now. Missy, back to you.
Thanks, Bob. And if you watched Hard Knocks like I did, then you know how confident this Browns team truly is. Coming up right after the break, the story of how Coach Tomlin and coordinators Randy Fichtner and Keith Butler first worked together back in 1998.
Look at those glasses.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, man.
Pretty slender there, Coach.
Yeah, look
Pretty
at that.
slender there.
Look, we look like our kids.
Yes, you do.
The Steelers' official mobile app brings your game day experience to a whole new level. The app features a new game center full of stats, drive charts, and video highlights. Following the game, watch live press conferences and video interviews. Download the Steelers' official mobile app for free today.
As the 2018 season kicks off tomorrow, the Steelers will be led by head coach Mike Tomlin, offensive coordinator Randy Fichtner, and defensive coordinator Keith Butler. Their tenure in Pittsburgh isn't the first time these three have worked together, though. For just one season in 1998, Tomlin, Fichtner, and Butler shared the sideline at Arkansas State University in Jonesboro.
Look at those glasses.
Oh, look at that.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Pretty slender there, Coach.
Yeah, look
Pretty
at
slender
that.
there.
Look, we look like our kids.
Yes, you do.
Brown hair. I didn't have gray hair back then.
Randy used to go sweater vest because he wanted to look presidential. You know, he was in a leadership position. He was a coordinator.
Yeah. Now look at me.
He had to change his wardrobe. He had to look like a coordinator. Their perspective on the experience is probably different than mine. You know, it was a proving ground for us as young coaches, but they were young coaches kind of in a leadership position for the first time, you know, as coordinators. And for me, it was just my first job, you know. I was excited to be making money and to be a homeowner and some of those things. They helped me a lot in terms of my growth and development, in terms of, you know, running my meetings and, you know, leading a group of men. I had just been a GA, and so it was my first job in that capacity, and watching them, how easily they navigated those waters, was big help to me.
Coach Fichtner was the first to be hired at ASU by Joe Hollis, who recently took the head coaching position and was starting to build his staff.
When I took the job, the first person I called as an assistant coach was Randy.
The opportunity that he offered to me was a godsend at that time.
Randy was probably more responsible for us being there than anybody, to be honest with you. You know, because he had a real big influence on Joe Hollis. Joe trusted him. When he got Mike, it was Randy.
Even at his young age, Tomlin was well known in coaching circles as an up-and-comer. His job with the University of Tennessee Martin led to a chance meeting during a recruiting trip.
The first couple of weeks I was the head coach at Arkansas State, went to Memphis because Randy was very familiar with Memphis. We went to East High School, which is one of the old high schools in Memphis.
East High School.
We were recruiting. I wouldn't have thought we were recruiting the same guy if he was at UT Martin and I was at Arkansas State.
Because I didn't know any better.
I saw this young guy sitting in the high school coach's office, and it was Mike Tomlin.
That's the guy. That's the guy that everyone's all talked about. I finally met him.
When we got back in the car to leave, Randy says, "Coach, I got his phone number."
All that nice work that we did that day to try and see if we couldn't get him to Jonesboro to help us with the offense and be a young wide receiver coach went for naught, because Butts came and stole him the next year and put him to defense. So
They taught me to go over there, but the only reason I went over there is if Mike would move over to coach the secondary, because I didn't know anybody over there. I knew him. I knew him well because he'd been over in Memphis with us for a couple of years.
At the time, Arkansas State football was transitioning from Division I AA to 1A, pitting the program against some of the best schools in the nation.
You know, we were trying to change the culture at Arkansas State.
You play in a bunch of homecoming games. You know, I'm not kidding you. We played, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, University of Minnesota, Virginia Tech, University of Miami, at the Orange Bowl. We went and shut Hawaii out at Hawaii. That was the first 1A road victory for the program.
I remember Keith was standing beside me and jumping up and down, throwing his headset off, and it was a big win for us.
So I don't know if 4 and 8 reflects the efforts. I had a lot of respect for the work that those young men put in and the way they played. We were in some tough spots.
Even though we were 4 and 8, we enjoyed it. All of us did, and the people there were were great people.
Great people.
Hard worker.
Although their stint at ASU was brief, Coach Tomlin knew this wouldn't be the last time they would work together.
In the arrogance of youth, man, that's probably kind of how I envisioned it. You know, when we were at Arkansas State, you know, I'm like, yeah, man, I'm gonna break through and bring the dudes along, you know.
He ain't changed.
They laugh because they know that's how I.
That's how he worked.
Tomlin's premonition would prove true when he took the head coaching job in Pittsburgh, reuniting with Butler and leaving an unforgettable voicemail for Fiechner.
I still have the message, and the only thing it said on it said, I got the job, and so do you. And I played it on the speakerphone to my wife. She started crying. I kind of was tearing up. The kids started bawling because they thought something seriously was wrong. They were really pretty little.
You know, the best thing, and I'd say this about us being together this long, is the honesty the whole time. You know, and the thing about coaching is you got to have honesty, and sometimes that honesty is brutal, and you don't want to hear it, but you need to hear it. And that's probably the thing that kind of holds us together. I know they're going to tell me the truth all the time. I know I can count on that all the time. It's been a great ride, really. It has been, but you know, we look for more. We do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's plenty more coming up on the Mike Tomlin Show. Up next, Bob and Coach preview the stars of HBO's Hard Knocks, the Cleveland Browns.
Heinz Field, baby, let's go.
This fall, we're hosting a few get-togethers at Heinz Field.
Touchdown, Antonio Brown. How did he do that? Here's a big rush, and that is Cam Hayward with yet another.
Come on by and join 68,000 of your closest friends.
Touchdown, Juju Smith-Schuster. The Steelers win the football game, and what a game.
For ticket information, visit Steelers.com. The Mike Tomlin Show is presented by 84 Lumber.
1-32. That is the record of the Cleveland Browns from the last 2 seasons, and it would be an understatement to say that it's tough for the Browns fans to get excited about their team for this season, but the Dog Pound will see a new-look Browns as there was almost a 60% change in their roster since their last game. With the addition of quarterback Tyrod Taylor, receiver Jarvis Landry, and the return of receiver Josh Gordon, the offense surely has some weapons. And on the other side of the ball, Ben Roethlisberger will need to look over his shoulder for Myles Garrett all day long. Let's head back over to Bob and Coach, who give us a scouting report on Cleveland.
All right, Misty, thanks. Once again, it's AFC North football right off the bat, just like last year. The Steelers in Cleveland to begin the season, and you'll see it on KDKA TV. Coaches talk about the Browns. You look at the record, 1-32 last 2 years. Some people will say, oh, it's an easy win. It never is an easy win when we go to Cleveland. Tell us about what this team is and how is it different from last year?
You know, I think we're all different from last year, and obviously if you're 0-16, you're going to make necessary changes to be different, and I'm sure that they've done that. I just look from a personnel standpoint about the new major components that they have and the development of the ones that they didn't have. Starting with new components on offense, it starts with Tyrod Taylor. His mobility and decision-making are dangerous, and I think he provides an asset to a developing group because his decision-making is always solid and his mobility creates opportunities for splash in the midst of whatever. They went out and acquired Carlos Hyde as a big runner. They supplemented him with Chubb, a top draft pick out of Georgia in the backfield. They've acquired Jarvis Landry to be their featured receiver and build a young, talented group around him. They've acquired Antonio Callaway, a talented guy that just was in this 2018 draft out of Florida. Anticipate him having a big component in what they do. The development of the young tight end out of Miami, watching preseason tape, his growth and development. The movement of Batonio as an interior lineman to left tackle in an effort to minimize the loss of Joe Thomas. Significant components there. On the other side of the ball, it's about the growth and development of Myles Garrett. We missed that train a little bit last year because of injury and so forth. We're not going to miss it this year. Preseason tape tells me that he is that unique talent that they drafted, coupled with the growth and development of young guys like Peppers They drafted a top 5 pick in Ward out of Ohio State at corner.
Looks like Josh Gordon is going to be a go for this week. What is the challenge with him?
You know, his vertical abilities. He's missed a substantial amount of time. That's not our job to quantify that impact. We respect what he's capable of, but we also know that they went out and paid a great deal of money to acquire Jarvis Landry, and he's a guy that's worked every day. So we better step into the stadium in that priority, minimizing Jarvis Landry and then Josh Gordon, although we got a great deal of respect for him.
Those are both challenges, and it brings into focus your defensive back and also your approach defensively this year. Bud Dupree, you guys bet on him for next year by picking up the 5th-year option. What do you expect from your secondary, specific to wide receivers like you're going to be facing this week?
You know, to meet the challenges that the NFL provides week in and week out, and that's very specific to me from a defensive back standpoint in today's game. You got to be able to minimize impact players, and particularly situationally. You can't let known variables come into a stadium and control moments. That's important. You got to minimize big plays. You got to work to keep the ball in front of you to make offenses earn it. And lastly, you got to work your tail off to adhere to points of emphasis or rules relative to play back there. That's a significant component of play. We're working to be dominant in all 3 areas.
12 years into this, you still as excited as you were year 1?
Probably more so. You see it with greater clarity. I think that clarity provides avenues for excitement and less worry, if you will. Man, I'm excited about getting going, particularly with this group.
All right, Mike Tomlin on the Cleveland Browns. That's the first opponent. We'll be back with a final word from Coach T in just a little bit. Missy, back to you.
Thanks, Bob. More excited than he was in 2007? I bet a lot of people would like to share that enthusiasm about their job. Right after the break, Stephon Tuitt tells me how injuries are part of why he loves the game of football.
There's not many jobs you can get to brag about, you know, all the injuries you have and what you played through and what you did.
There are no fans anywhere like Steelers Nation. And you can celebrate your fandom with Steelers Nation Unite at games, at events, and online at SteelersNationUnite.com. Join the official home of Steelers Nation now, where we celebrate you for being the best fans in the world.
You have to win on the road. You just can't count on the home games because there's just as many of those as there are getting in the plane or on the bus to travel.
It wasn't like we went into Cleveland going, oh boy, I hope we have a chance here. You know, you're confident.
Complete domination of the Browns basically both ways. The ground game was prodigious, not only the bus.
And Willie Parker and that speed.
Fast Willie, and he showed you he was still fast. Scoring early and often, I mean, that's a recipe for victory. They did what they had to do, and that's what a Super Bowl run is all about.
The Steelers' defensive line showcases one of the fiercest duos in the NFL with Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt. Hayward has reached All-Pro status, and Tuitt has shown potential of reaching that exact same level. Tomorrow will mark 1 year since Tuitt suffered a torn bicep tendon while tracking down Browns running back Isaiah Crowell, an injury that would bother him for the rest of the 2017 season. Earlier this week, I caught up with Tuitt to see if he's 100% ready to go physically from that injury and mentally from that ugly playoff loss to Jacksonville.
45-42, their season comes to a crashing halt, and Jacksonville advances.
Do you guys think about the loss in the playoffs to Jacksonville, or did you have enough time during training camp and the offseason to do that?
Well, of course, they're going to play in your head a couple times. I don't know a player that doesn't play in their head a couple times. But this is a new year. This is a new season. A lot of guys prepared this offseason to not retrace those same steps. So we're going to focus on what we need to focus on week in and week out to not be in that situation again.
Defense specifically, there are some new faces, but there are guys who experienced that. So how are you guys different, or how have you improved since the end of that
I think our improvement is more with our chemistry and more with guys being here for a certain amount of times together. We have the experience, I feel like, with the personal players that's on the team, especially on the defense, that we actually know each other. We actually know the defense. We actually know what we're supposed to do, and we know if we could probably sometimes adjust it ourselves as players because we know what we're supposed to do, and I think that's going to be the real exciting piece.
Week 1 last year was against Cleveland. You signed the contract, then you get injured just a few plays into the game. What was that moment like?
It was heartbreaking. I really had a really good offseason.
I know you don't want to use it as an excuse, an injury, but it did impact 2017, correct?
It did. It impacted, and this is why I love the game, because there's not many jobs you could get. You could go on and brag about, you know, all the injuries you have and what you played through and what you did. You know, it's amazing some of the guys you hear and some of the stuff and injuries. I mean, some of the injuries that they went through and what they played through. And they all say they all grew from it, especially it was something stopping them from being the type of player that they was used to be. They all grew from it, and I feel like I'm in that same situation.
One back gets a fake, and he's sacked. Mariota is greeted by Stephon Tuitt back at the 12-yard line.
Hey, welcome to the backfield, Stephon Tuitt.
Is it safe to say, especially after your performance against the Titans, just 2 quarters, that you feel good, you're ready to go this year too?
I'm just gonna take it a day at a time, get better a day at a time. I'm gonna take it a week at a time too as well. I'm not gonna be focused on anything I don't need to focus on. I know what type of player I could be, I know what player I want to be, I know what player I'm gonna make myself be, but I'm just gonna be the type of person that just come in every single day, put my head down and get to work. Do
you and Cam talk about sacks at all?
Oh yeah, it may come in a couple of times after mini competition period. We just was talking about it today. But I told him, I said, I'm glad you had all those sacks last year, but it's time for a new person to be there. It's time for me to be there.
Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Mike Tomlin Show, presented by 84 Lumber. Before we say goodnight, though, let's get some final thoughts from the head coach.
All right, Missy, thanks. That was a great piece you guys did, Steelers.com, on the coaching history of these guys. That'd be cool, just to reminisce a little bit.
It is, and you know, I think that is the journey in this profession. You meet people along the way that help you from a growth and development standpoint. If you get opportunities to work with them in the future, you do. Man, I've enjoyed the relationship that I've had with those guys over the years. They've helped me grow and develop in a lot of ways. It's great that the stars align and we can come together and do this work here and appreciate not only the present, but our shared experience, growth opportunities. We've all grown and developed over the years, and it's good to have brothers that you've been through that with. It helps you meet some of the day-to-day challenges that you meet in present-day ball.
It's a circle of life, and it comes around in football, too.
I'm
Coach,
telling you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good luck this week. It's week 1. Steelers and Browns on KDKA TV, and thank you for joining us for the first installment of the Mike Tomlin Show. We'll do it again next week. For Missy Matthews and Coach T, I'm Bob Pompiani. Thanks for watching the Mike Tomlin Show, sponsored by 84 Lumber. Good night.